Hello and welcome everybody to Teamfight Talkshow. I am DoA, with me is Frodan as always, and today we have our very special guest, the one and only Maximum Impact Gaming Frost AD Carry World Extraordinaire Locodoco. How's it going? That's how you prefer to be introduced, right?
Oh, yeah,
Frost,
that's like
ADC,
what,
yeah.
9 years ago, 10 years ago? I do
Nobody's
remember
keeping
like
track of that.
introducing myself like that to you.
I think that's how it worked. Yeah, I think way back in like 2012 or something. But anyway, Locodoco has been playing a lot of TFT. We want to bring him on the show. A lot of history in Riot-related video games, and now making some moves in TFT. But Frodan, how's it going? It's been an interesting 2 weeks since we've done a show, hasn't it? TFT has been an interesting place to be, huh?
I'm not a boy anymore, DoA. I went through the Divine meta, and it was tough. It was tough. Interestingly enough, that ended up being a patch that I did really well on for the first half of. I think before people had truly optimized like all the Divine aspect, before we figured out like, for example, like Morgana should be played in a lot of the Divine comps, and people were just spamming Divine mindlessly, I was being able to beat them a lot. So I actually hit Grand Masters for the first time, which was a really big achievement for me.
Nice.
But then, so I was like, okay, I'll make this my climbing account. And then I started playing, and I kind of actually been struggling the past few days. Even after the B patch, it feels like right now things are kind of chaotic. So lots to unpack. I'm really excited to talk about it. And I know Loco's a really big person that loves talking about like meta and theory. And
of course,
so I'm really excited.
I thought you were going to say I love Divine.
he's a Divine only player, always has been.
Performances. He is an expert Divine one trick.
Yeah, he DM'd me after the patch. He was just like, "This is so unfair. Like, when is it going to be Divine's time to shine? I don't know. Mort, please, unnerf." But Loco, let's some people I would assume most everybody is aware of who you are. But for those few people out there who do not, do you want to give us like a quick breakdown of your esports background, your esports career, and kind of how everything thus far has led you to TFT?
Sure. I'm pretty sure most people know me from head coaching TSM, head coaching Team Liquid. I won 2 LCS championships with TSM, but I actually played for 4 years. It's forever ago, but yeah, I used to be a professional AD carry. And I've been doing content for like the last 2 years, and then I took a really big break from League of Legends and content in general. I wouldn't say like I'm like a full-time TFT person. I enjoy TFT. A lot of my friends play TFT, and I'm pretty good at TFT. Yeah, but that's who I am, guys. What up?
All right. Well, for
Nice.
those of you who don't know, Loco is one of the only players in League who pretty successfully bounced between NA and Korean teams multiple times. So not a lot of players are able to do that, but you're able to do that. Like you said, make the successful transition to coach for a while, and just all around maker of a lot of content. You might have seen him on shows like Summoning Insight and things like that in the past, or Listen Loco, all that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, so just a dude with a lot of esports history and now TFT. So I have to ask, like, what is it about TFT that kind of drew you into it?
So my IRL friend group consists of Becca and Saint.
Hmm.
We have like a small board game group that we used to meet up a lot before all the COVID things happened, and we would play a lot of board games. And even non-Becca and Saint Vicious in that group played a lot of TFT, so TFT was like a huge talking point. And my roommate is Green TJ. He's the product owner for TFT. So
Oh,
just
okay.
people in my life play a lot of TFT. So I started playing TFT. The game was really fun. And even though I took a huge break from League, I'm still very interested in gaming. I played a lot of Valorant. I got all the way up to Diamond in that game. And yeah, I was like, great, let's play some TFT. And that's kind of how it got started.
Cool. So TFT more or less just kind of absorbed you into it rather than you coming to TFT. You were kind of like eaten by the TFT amoeba that surrounded you, basically.
More, yeah, I didn't choose TFT. TFT chose me.
Pretty much. So, as far as that goes, you recently played in the Mortdog 4v4 Madness tournament, and your team made it pretty deep, actually. Like, what? So,
Yeah.
what was that experience like? Like compared to your TFT grind on the ladder, and then being in this team environment, because you're more used to playing esports in a team environment. So, did that feel more natural to you?
So pre-tournament, I've never been a challenger in TFT. I've been GM. I've been high in the ladder, but I've never ever been challenger. So playing in a tournament where I'm not challenger, I'm not at the very top of the ladder. I'm not even like top 200. I felt
Mhm.
very undersized. I was like, man, so many people are going to be better than me. I don't want to disappoint Becca. I don't want to disappoint Zane. I really want to do well for my team. So I was really scared going into that tournament. And I think we did pretty well in the tournament. I think we made it to final four, right? And
Yeah,
I
I
was
believe so.
the highest point earner on my team. I first placed, but the first 3 games we played in day 2, I went first, second. So I did amazingly well that day, and it gave me a
Mhm.
lot of confidence. Like maybe I'm just not a ladder player, and I can play well in tournament. And playing in a team environment was definitely fun. I don't think we did a lot of team things very well, but we just had a lot of fun. Like because I know Thane and Becca pretty well. I also know Chris from back in the league days. Like it was just incredibly
Mhm.
fun, like trolling around with friends and being like in that environment.
So, do you think it was mostly like the positive attitude that helped you guys do well, or what made you able to beat all these other like very seasoned TFT people?
Uh, I think I mean, our team, like, even though like name wise we might not be that good, like Thane and Becca are all-time challenger players. Like Chris is an all-time challenger player too. Like we
Mhm.
were not a pushover team. The only person that's like a pushover in that team was me. So and I stepped up where I was the highest scorer on our team. So yeah, like we did well because we're just good players. Nothing too
Nice.
special.
Sweet. All right. Well, let's move on to some TFT news. So, there's been a lot going on in the TFT scene. There's been, one comp in particular, and if I recall correctly, and to be honest, I've had like a lot of other work things going on, so I actually haven't played as much TFT in the last 2 weeks as I normally would by quite a bit. I played some on an alt account, because of the way that the patch kind of was shaking out. But initially, it seemed like there wasn't going to be a hot fix, and then there kind of was a hot fix slash a B patch kind of thing. And we've got a tweet from Mort from the 20th, so from yesterday, which is where the B patch did go live. And I love that he said, "To err is human, to forgive is divine," because
Um,
that's the old phrase, but it's so appropriate for this particular situation. Because yeah, divine needed a bit of nerf. Frodan, you and I talked about this before this patch even happened, that divine was looking pretty strong. Is it kind of what you expected, or were you even like kind of surprised at like the level that Divine sort of like leapt to in this patch before the patch?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Divine. I think the first thing was, our last episode, I basically said I don't think Divine needs this buff. I think it's actually playable. And then it wasn't just Divine though. It was
Mm,
specifically the interaction with Static Shiv and Warwick.
mm,
Because in case you took a break from TFT, it was, Static Shiv got buffed so that it dealt bonus true damage to anybody that was shielded or crowd controlled CC. And that just turns out that that's like everything in the game.
right.
And also there's an interaction with Adept where
Mhm.
Adept's debuff at the beginning, because it slows attack speed, counts as CC. Therefore, the Static Shiv would start proccing true damage immediately. Then Warwick not only gets this going, but he gets attack speed and life steal, and he fears people around him, which
Yep.
makes him also very difficult to jump on. So it just like kind of creates this dynamic where like a 1-star Warwick with like a locket on Jax, a Shiv, and you don't even need QSS would instantly give you like a very easy top 4 guarantee. Then also people started realizing this, and then because of that dynamic, 6 to 7 people could reasonably go Divine, and it wasn't wrong because you could play a 1-star Warwick and just go all the way to 8. It was pretty obnoxious. And then people started innovating upon that. There was a couple of builds that were trying to pretty good against it. Like sharpshooters were kind of like hanging in there for a while. Akali ninja builds, which you see got nerfed as well,
Mhm.
got a big buff. But like, man, this is probably going to go down in history as one of the like most oppressive metas we've ever gone through, just solely because of how like crazy represented it was. If you look at the meta sites, the average lobby had almost 3 people playing Divine, which is first of
That's
all
crazy.
crazy
Yeah.
high. Because during like the Dark Star meta, when it was really popular, you would probably have an average of like 1.2, 1.3. This is
Mm,
like 2.7 people per lobby going for it. And the second thing that was crazy was the distribution of placing. So normally you see like a little normal distribution, right? Like usually third or fourth is where comps average. It was a
mm.
perfect like first to eighth declining slope average placement distribution, which has never been done before in TFT, like as far as our meta reports have gone. And so it was
Uh,
just like data wise, one of the most like staggering things to visualize that we've ever seen in the game. And I think even if Mort was correct and the rest of the bounce team is right, where like it was counterable, the optics were awful, right? Like popular
yeah.
streamers who like to dip into TFT were like, this is like awful. I don't want to play it. Like
Yeah.
Sneaky and like Angels Kimmy and Choco Bars, like people who don't normally like specialize in the highest level of TFT, but they love playing the game, were like talking about how much they didn't like it. And that was so discouraging to see as someone that loves to play TFT as one of their main games.
In terms of like community perception, the perception of balance is more important than actual balance. If even if the game is horribly unbalanced and there's like giga overpowered comps and there's comps that aren't playable, if people think it's balanced, like the community like rationale will be like the game is in a great spot, even if like the game
Yeah.
itself is unbalanced. Like
Mhm.
streamer outcry, like streamers are being a bigger and bigger part of games, especially with games like TFT. I think it's something like to think about. Um, I really never want TFT to be in a position where things get decided due to community outcry. And I really hope they always stick to data and they always stick to like what they think is correct and never get like
Definitely.
pushed over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that's kind of the danger too, right? Because it's hard to walk that line, and like I think honestly, like throughout all this, we should give like a big round of applause to Mort, frankly, for just being so transparent and willing to interact with community with all this, and being willing to say like, hey, this didn't work out the way we wanted it to. We're making a change. But at the same time, I think he does a very good job of walking that line of not bowing to the community wishes too quickly. Like he really does seem to base things on data when the changes come through. And again, like I've been doing esports for like a decade now, and Loco, you've been esports for a long time, so have you, Frodan. I don't know if I've ever seen a developer be as transparent and as aggressive at interacting with the community in a positive way as I've seen from Mort. So despite all this, it really is unique and cool that we have somebody like that in TFT.
Yeah, I mean, usually developers are on their like emperor god throne and they sometimes descend and talk to the community in like a
Uh,
downward manner and then they go back to their god throne. But Mort and Riot in general has been pretty open about talking to the community. Morello from Valorant before he left, a lot of the League developers very openly talking about League and like why they do certain things, like admitting mistake. I think it's been really good, like what Riot is doing and what the devs are doing in terms of, hey, we want to be part of the community. The community matters to us too.
Yeah. So I'm curious about your opinion on just like balance patching in general. Do you prefer more patching or less patching overall?
I think TFT is really different. Like for League, even when there's balance patches being done, like you can still play your game and you can still you can take a 2-week break, come back to League. You can take a year, maybe not a year break because of the preseason and like the season to season game changing so much. You can take an extended break, come back to League and enjoy League of Legends for what it was. If you take a break for up to 2 to 3 months, or not even 2 to 3 months, 1 month of TFT, and then you come back, sometimes the game is completely different. Like it is a very information driven game. The correct way to play has a lot to do with like numbers changing and like what comps are good. So I think it's really dangerous with TFT to patch frequently, because if you don't play every day, then it's just really hard to get into. So it is something to worry about that's very unique to this genre of games.
Yeah, very true. Because a lot of times, a lot of the changes that are made aren't changes that are, visible when you log into the game. Like you haven't seen the patch notes, you don't know that this one champion is suddenly much weaker than it was, a week before. So Frodan, as far as that goes, like I know I feel like we've asked you this before, but I'm curious about your opinions again on that type of thing too. Where we generally see a TFT patch, I believe, like what, every 2 weeks or so usually, which seems like a lot. In fact, I feel like that's the most often I've ever seen a game patch that I've been pretty directly involved in. Um, do you feel like that should slow down aside from, issues like this where there's clearly a hot fix that's needed, or would you rather continue to see things patched pretty quickly?
Yeah, it's difficult because it's exactly how Loco described. TFT is like
Mm,
a game where you're really encouraged to play it a lot, and as a result, kind of creates this dynamic where there's two kinds of players in TFT. One that like plays every so often, has no clue what's happening, don't even really know the changes, and they're just kind of playing their favorite champions and comps, very
mm,
casual. And you have the hyper engaged player that feels like every single day is an eternity. Like how on earth have they gone 3 business days without fixing Warwick? Like how
Yeah.
dare they spend 24 hours of development time not actually fixing the game? And so there's like
mm,
actually such a weird like dichotomy there. It's not really one. There's not really players that are in between who are kind of chill. It's usually people who are very opinionated. Either stop changing the game so much that I can't really recognize it, or there's people who say you're not doing enough to change the game every single time I log in. And
right.
that's kind of like a really interesting problem that I think that they have to solve. I still think that specifically auto battlers and like TFT has done so much to innovate the genre, and they still have a few different things that they need to tackle. Like, they're trying to do right now with system changes, right? Like they're trying to change the shop, they're trying to change like top four is always like LP gain and these different things that like players always struggled to feel bad about. But
Mm.
another thing that they have to figure out, like how do they satisfy both player bases? Because it's going to be a really difficult challenge moving forward. Because TFT is super popular and they have
Right.
so many players with a lot of different interests.
Right, and like you have to kind of weigh too as a developer, which demographic is ultimately more important for the success of the game. Is it the hardcores or is it the casual? And it's not always easy to answer that question, right? Because the casuals might make up the bigger number overall, but the hardcore players are the ones that are going to keep coming back. So those are kind of like the long-term success players as far as like the life of the game. So it's tricky, but let's move on to some of the other recent changes with the game and sort of like comps that have rose and fall. Now, Akali got a bit of a nerf in this patch as well. It seemed like for a while there we were seeing 4 Ninja be a little bit more popular. I feel like I was seeing people kind of play that, and then I didn't hear about it for a couple days. But like I said, I've honestly been kind of out of touch for the last couple weeks, just to be perfectly transparent. So Dan, I'm relying on you with this one. Where are ninjas at right now? I know Akali was strong, but nerf warranted. It's only an
Yeah,
Akali 3 nerf, I guess, but
Yeah, it just felt like I think that's just more of like a perception thing. Like when ninjas got online, it was just like really strong because you might look at this 50 damage and not think it's very much, but it's amplified by the crit damage plus the fact
mm,
that there's crit items on it. So assassins give critical damage as well.
Right.
And Ikalia was just like one-shotting everything. Now she doesn't truly one-shot everything, but she's still very close to it. And so what some players are doing actually are just going Ninja Shades and actually going back to Kane. Kane's actually getting a little bit more play right now, which is pretty
Hmm.
interesting because there's so many Ari players and sharpshooter players. Now that Divine's bad, or not bad, but a lot weaker. It's actually still playable.
Hmm.
We need backline access. And so Kane and Shades and like all these things are really powerful to try to do like a big sweep of AoE. And so if you're kind of like struggling with ninjas specifically like the Akali Ninja Assassins build, there's definitely some options that we're still exploring of like what to do in the late stages of the game and how we fit out the rest of the synergies beyond the four ninjas. It's really interesting right now.
All right. Loco, when you've been playing recently, what have you kind of leaned towards? Have you just gone straight up divine the entire time, or have you tried to like have you tried to be the contrarian and find whatever is best against them?
I am very like by the books player. I've always been like in League of
Uh,
Legends, and basically every game I play, I am like, what is the most meta? What is the highest winning percentage strategy, and how can I master it? Like people were talking about, oh, it's just mindlessly spam divine, but there were a lot of tidbits on like how you can play divine better. You
hmm.
know, the poster boy for divine was Warwick, right? But when you find the divine spat, it's actually better to put that divine spat on Ashe and make Ashe your carry. Like give Ashe the shiv, give Ashe the divine, give Ashe like 2 ships plus the divine spat, and she's gonna go off, and she's better than Warwick, and you beat a lot of your mirror comps that way. So yeah, there's a lot of little things that you could have figured out with divine if people were like looking at divine and being like, a lot of people just viewed it as play divine,
Yeah.
mindless. Like that's why I'm not gonna touch it. I did end up there too, because like people at the top of the ladder, they figured out all this stuff and they figured out more than me, so they were just better divine players, and I didn't want to spend an eternity like trying to learn divine.
Yeah.
In terms of comps I've been playing, I like sharpshooters. I think it's a really fun comp, and like that's the one I've been playing the most. There's been like the Enlightened Nami comp. Like it used to be like the Nami Mage comp, but people are playing 6 Enlightened Nami now. I think that's also a really strong comp.
Right. With like
Um,
Lutens or something?
yeah,
Talking
with
about?
students and
Yeah.
stuff. I love Duelist. I think Duelist is a really fun comp. It's the comp I could probably talk the most about. I think a lot of people fixate on Yasuo 3, but Yasuo 3 is actually not that important a lot of times. If there's multiple Yasuo players, if Yasuo is not your chosen, if you aren't getting a lot of Yasuos, you don't want to go Yasuo 3. The conditions for going Yasuo 3 for me is Yasuo chosen, and also I'm going to have 3 incredibly good Yasuo items. Like there's no reason to 3-star your Yasuo if you're not going to have 3 Yasuo items. And yeah, if your Yasuo isn't a chosen, just pump levels, and you have really good endgame with Lee Sin. You have really good endgame with Yone, and also your mid game is incredibly strong with stuff like Jax, stuff like Callista. So don't all in on like Yasuo 3 being your main carry.
Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense.
So
All right. Well, looking at some of these other patch notes too, there was a while, like I remember you and I talking about this, Frodan, in on Discord, where we were discovering people were stacking Zeeks again and stacking Lockets again, and throwing a couple ice cream cones in there for good measure. Do you feel like this kind of takes away the sort of Zeke stacking thing, or was that only something that was working for just that one day? Because the meta does, it changes every day. So
It's meta changes a lot, and you're completely right. Like Zeke stacking can be a thing. It's just not nearly as broken as we thought it was when we first like saw it being played. But it's still very good as a slammable item. Chalice of Power is still very very good, especially if you play Ari builds right now. Like
hmm.
people are basically just being degenerates and figuring out how you can squeeze more Ari power into comps. A lot of people, if they're uncontested, try to play 2 RE2s and Vanguard Mystics. Some people play 2 RE2s and a Yumi with 3 chalices. Like they will do anything to just get more AP to instant
Kind
nuke
of
everything.
disgusting. Yeah.
And it's very effective. So if you're like uncontested Ari, a lot of times it's not about like trying to find a random synergy. A lot of times it's just playing a second Ari and nuking people's boards right now.
Sounds like a
Right now, I
typical.
think we're kind of figuring out ways to build it. And I would say, here's my prediction: is that we're going to come full circle. I knocked my microphone because I was very excited about this. Build a goddamn shroud of stillness, people. Please. Like,
Aren't
there's
people
so
already
many
doing that?
people who are
What?
like who ping they ping, they have like glove and belt and vest, and they just slammed the Sunfire. And I'm like, Shroud of Stillness is so good in the metagame right now. And we're going to come full circle. We're going to realize we should have been building it the entire time. So build the Shroud, please.
Everybody's building it early on, but I guess it fell out of style. It's true. I admit, I stopped building it.
How do you guys like the set overall, like compared to set 3 and set 1? I actually never played set 2, so I don't have like a good grasp on it. Like, we're what, like 2 months into the set? How do you guys like the set overall?
I still think it's the best set yet by a decent margin. I think the chosen mechanic still, despite this rough patch that we just got off of, it's still, I think, conceptually and in execution for the most part the best set we've had, just because the chosen mechanic gives you so much to do as far as genuinely being adaptable and being really flexible with your play. It feels like that lets you play TFT in a way that the developers sort of always intended, right? Where rather than spamming one single build, again, last patch notwithstanding, spamming one single build or picking like even 2 or 3 builds and just focusing those, like now you can truly just be, hey, well, I'll see what my chosen is and maybe I'll build around it, maybe not. I feel like you can approach the game in a much more flexible way now than you were able to in the other sets. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think that this is definitely like the best overall set we've had. I would say the previous patch aside, it's been really good. I think it's really balanced. I do feel like I want the shop change to be reverted back. I think that there's just
I was gonna bring that up too. Yeah.
It's such a good set, and the one thing that feels kind of hard is that there's so much chaos with how many champions are in the pool that it does feel like sometimes game plans get completely lost, right? Because like I was thinking about it because I was playing an Ash comp today, and I didn't find any ashes, or I had one Ash, and I didn't find any ashes for the rest of the game. And then I looked in the lobby, no one else was contesting it, and I rolled so much gold. And the problem was that I actually reviewed my VODs, and I realized I was getting the same shops over and over. I had like double Kennen shops like 4 times on my roll down. It was like kind of absurd. And so I think like these kinds of variants is really hard to accept sometimes.
Right.
And that's my only complaint. That's my only complaint about set 4. Everything else I think is really good. I think they did the traits really well. I think they did the flavor exceptionally well. I think there's a lot of really interesting play styles that you can choose, whether it's reroll, whether it's fast leveling, whether it's just like aggressive tempo styles. And just the theme is like spot on. So like overall, I think set 4 is really truly like the culmination of a lot of good design lessons that they've learned. I really enjoyed the chosen mechanic for a lot of reasons that we can talk about further. But I do want to advocate for the shop to go back, please. I really miss that shop change.
So
for me, that's interesting. Go ahead, Loco. Yeah,
I love set 3, and I think flavor-wise, set 3 was so much more fun, and set 3 had so much more clarity than set 4. Like set 3 theme, like being in space and like the pirates, the Star Guardians, the Rebel mech. I think everything was really cool, and all the synergies felt great. In set 4, my initial reaction was there's a lot of hidden power and there's not a lot of clarity. So things like Adept is giga powerful. Like AoE attack speed across the board means not just like people doing less damage, it also means people not casting and your team generally getting the second cast. And getting the second cast can be really bad in a lot of situations. Like stuff like Dazzler. Dazzler is just also like powerful in a sense, but it's all very hidden power. Where in set 3, all the powers like were very, very apparent. Things were strong and you knew they were strong. But I gotten to like set 4 a lot more, and I agree with you guys regarding Chosen. But also regarding like the art direction, initially League of Legends were very clear on like if you have a certain champion and they have a certain silhouette, like you should be able to recognize things by silhouette. But it was a little murky with Dark Stars, like with Mordekaiser and Jarvan. But this said, all the Dusk unit have very same-ish looking silhouette. For us now, it doesn't seem that way. Like I can tell Ribbon apart from Cassiopeia, but we put so much hours into TFT. I would say like a casual player would still have a lot of time, like a hard time differentiating between some of the champions and some of like the power that's within the set. I think game mechanic, like set 4 is crazy good. I'm okay with the theme. Like, what does the theme Fates mean? It doesn't really like speak out to me. And like, I guess there is like this like kind of mystical, like Asian, like fantasy vibe to the whole set. But yeah like
that's what I got.
I'm not as in love as other people are. I still think it's a good set. I still think the set is fun, but I'm not over the moon like everyone else is.
Interesting. Yeah, it's I agree as far as the one point that I really agree with you on is the traits being less visually apparent. Because things like Dazzler, things like Adapt, or Adept rather, even even things like Divine to a certain extent are a little bit tricky to see when they activate. So, or Spirit, for instance. So I do agree with you there that if there was anything that I would like to see differently is that traits are more obvious when they occur. I agree with you there. That said, I really like what the traits do. I think that's really fun to kind of play around. But I do think as much as people kind of like panned set 3 here and there, I do think you're right that the different traits were much more obvious and much more like visibly different from each other on the board, which I think is significant too, for sure.
Also,
As far, oh, go ahead.
there's another thing, like regarding clarity. Let's say like you listed out all the bonus for like the traits, right? Like
Mm,
when you blah blah blah, like divine allows you to become invulnerable, like or allows you to be immune to CC for or cleanse CC, do additional true damage. Like you have all the things that each trait does, right? And then you have the trait names, and then you ask like a player like that's never played TFT before or never played set 4 before, and then you ask them, hey, what do you think this trait links to? Like if you can do like a ladder or like if you can point each one to it. Like
okay.
one that really stuck out to me is sharpshooters. I'm like, okay, so if I think sharpshooter, I would probably think armor penetration. I would probably think like precision. Like that's the name that it comes out to. And then
Right.
it doesn't do that. It ricochets. Like it has nothing to do with the name. Like so things like this like bother me because it makes it less clear. And TFT is like a huge information upkeep. Like we talked about that earlier. That's why you need to play more. And I think the set being a little bit more clear and having more clarity in that would have made like set 4 much more well designed to me.
Hmm. All right. I had another point I was going to talk about, and then I totally forgot about it. But yeah, overall though, it seems like it is a really good set. I think it's
Yeah,
good. I think the chosen
gameplay
mechanics
wise,
are great.
great
Yeah.
set.
The shot mechanic. Yeah. So I was really curious about your take on that, Frodan. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's interesting to me that you want to have it reverted. Because I feel like I see this being like a very divisive issue. Like I see people vehemently arguing against it because they hate lobbies where there's a lot of 3 stars, and I see other people, and I'm kind of on this side of things too, where I liked it because I don't mind seeing a lot of 3 stars. I think it's kind of cool actually that you can kind of like count on getting 1 or 2 in your games and kind of feeling that power spike. The rolling did feel much more smooth. Like for those of us who've played other sets, when they made that change, I just started doing the old fashioned thing where it's like, oh, I want a 4 cost. So I'll just buy the 4 cost in a shop and roll and, kind of narrow the pool slightly to, give myself that tiny little higher percentage chance of getting what I'm looking for. But before that, it was nice to kind of not have to worry about that extra little mechanic, essentially, in terms of finding what I liked. So I'd kind of like to see it reverted as well. But Locodoco, I'm curious about your take on that, and if you think maybe the 3 costs are strong enough that we don't want to see them as regularly, and maybe that's why the shop change is important. But what's your take on it?
Well, champions getting 3-starred, especially like the 4 cost and the 3 cost. One other thing that causes that is a chosen, right? So if
Mm,
you're just building your comp, like you're building like a regular ninja comp, and then you suddenly get an Akali chosen, sometimes you go from like having 4 Akalis to suddenly having 7 Akalis, and you're now only 2 Akalis away from 3-starring it. So that's also a thing, other
mm,
than just like the shot mechanic. I like the shot mechanic being like the original, like the set 3, set 2, set 1, where it doesn't matter if you picked it up or not, you have the same rate of seeing it. Because it makes the early game really murky. Like you want to be flexible, but you're put in this weird situation where you're like, okay, I have like a few brawlers. I should never pick up the Vanguards because it's gonna murk up my pool. So
mm,
there is problems with that. It does fix like the bad RNG feeling, like Frodan talked about, where you're rolling 50 gold and you don't see the unit that you want. But on the reverse, it makes it so people get that high end RNG a lot too. So I don't think it's clear cut. I'm fine with it one way or the other. I do think it's gonna be really a bad look because it's a hidden mechanic. No one lets you know. Like you can
mm,
play the game. If you did not see those notes, you can play the game for like 10 years and you would not figure it out. So it's a hidden
sure.
mechanic. So it's this, now it's that, and then we're gonna go back to this. I think is Really, really bad. Like Riot
That's
already made their
that's just
decision.
been a
Like
thing in Riot's game for
Mhm.
so long. Or it's just like they don't explain how TFT works in a lot of these small nuances. You're totally right, Loco. Sorry. I just wanted to
I
chime
think it
in.
would be a terrible look for them to change it again. Like you changed it once, people learned it, and then you changed it back, and then now people are going to unlearn it. Don't change it a third time, especially when it's a hidden mechanic. Like I couldn't care one way or the other, but I really don't think they should change it anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of it's tough, right? Because by its nature, TFT is just gonna have a lot of and to a certain extent, League of Legends or any MOBA really is gonna have, by nature, a lot of the things hidden, away. Not hidden, but just not on the screen all the time, right? And so it's kind of that question I think when you're developing a game is like how much information is too little information, how much information is too much information, to put on the screen. If you watch a game of League of Legends, you see, and they bring up the items, you see all like tons of different icons and numbers at the bottom of the screen in this box. And if you're not familiar with League of Legends or you don't play it a ton, you're like, what in the world is this weird? Like, is this a matching game that we're playing now? Is this a Rubik's Cube? Like, what is this? Right. So I think to a certain extent, some of that stuff, the casual players won't notice. Like a casual player probably wouldn't even ever notice that the shop was one way or the other. And a hardcore player probably is going to do the research anyway. So it's like it's hard to kind of gauge, I think, that level of concern you need to have as far as like how much information is too much information and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like the other really big hidden information thing is the item pool. If you get certain items dropped from the neutral creeps, you have less chance to get those items. So if you got a lot of both naturally, you're not going to get both later on down the line. And things like that are really important when it comes to like stage 4, stage 3 item selection at carousel, because you're trying to finish off like your key items at the end, like, and you need to know which one you're going to have a higher chance of getting. And yeah, like I didn't know that. I was a GM player in set 3 and I did not know that until someone told me. And I
Well, I
would
don't
have
think
had
that information came out until like halfway through set 3, if I remember right, too. So
um,
I think we were all trying to sort of like parse it out, but we didn't really know about the item bag thing until they actually just told us, which I think was like, do you remember, Dan, when that was? If was that like halfway through set 3? Set 3, I think it was around
Yeah,
there.
it was
Yeah.
some time after the set had released.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So we didn't know
things
either.
like that, like unless and it's not even documented, right? Maybe it is
Mm.
documented in a wiki somewhere. Like I checked the TFT wiki a lot of times, but yeah, I would like it if the game was easier to pick up for competitive players in that end. Like having all these like hidden mechanics listed somewhere, or like and they're just being like a glossary of like, hey, all the things you need to learn.
Sure. So speaking of set 4 and just kind of like how to play it and all that, we wanted to bring up a Reddit thread that had been making the rounds, as Reddit threads often do. This one was by Mismatched Socks, and it was about playing flexibly. And so I wanted to get your guys' takes on this because it's it basically is it's kind of on the surface a response to the divine meta, but it's also kind of like a neat look into just like playing flexibly as well. So which it seems like in set 4 is more important than ever.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's two chains of thoughts. One is like, yes, you should be like very agile with the ability to switch once you find like specific chosens. The other side is that you basically are reaffirmed into whatever you want to play. Like one tricking is still very powerful, particularly because what chosens allow you to do is actually to smooth out the low variance of your one tricking. Because if you
Mm,
do end up playing like let's say you love playing duelists, right? The fact that all you really need is any of the chosen duelists gives you a lot of flexibility to just one trick duelist, because you can choose Yasuo and try to 3-star him. Although it's meta dependent. Right now, maybe you don't want to
Sure.
do that. Maybe you get Jax. Maybe you build Kalista as your carry. Maybe you actually go for the secret OP Xin Zhao to do that.
he's
Or
so
maybe you don't do that at all. Maybe you just pick up like a random, divine or enlightened or mystic and play that 9. But either way, there's like two very strong opinions that you can one trick and you can play flexibly, which I think is good. I think the fact that it's not supposed to be one or the other. You need to have all these kind of different play styles. What becomes really interesting is that Socks not only plays flexibly, but he played flexibly to number 1 on North America and number 1 globally during the Divine meta patch. And I think that was like the most interesting aspect about this entire guide, because he was doing this, getting top 4 every single game when everyone was spamming Warwicks and saying that it was impossible to climb unless you played Divine. So I find that particularly impressive from Sock.
My
Well,
take
this
on
is also Socks we're talking about, right? Like, if anyone's going to be able to do it, it's probably going to be a player like Mismatched Socks. So it's that old thing where it's like the best players will be the best players no matter what the meta is. But at the same time, I agree with what you're saying, where again, like set 4 really allows you to play flexibly, not in that you play something different every game, but that you could play that way, but you can also just kind of pick a line that you prefer to go in. What were you going to say, Loco?
My take is playing flexibly is always better than playing one-dimensionally and playing with one-tricking a comp. Like, if you are a pro-level player, I think you should be playing flexibly, and that is the best way to play. But for vast majority of the player base, like for 95% of the player base, one-tricking is going to be better. To play flexibly, you need to understand so much more concepts. You need to understand so much more things to be a good flexible player, versus if you want to be a good sharpshooter player, if you want to be a good duelist player, if you want to be a good whatever comp player, there is just a lot less to learn and a lot less things to worry about. So yeah, I think this is a great guide. I respect Sox so much as a player. He's someone that's been very good all across multiple sets, but I think for a vast majority of the player base, this doesn't apply. You should just one-trick the comp you're good with.
Fair enough. Let's see. So is there anything else we wanted to mention with that? It's a huge thread, and I'm gonna link. I wonder if I can link it in chat, because everyone should read it.
It's a really good one, and it talks about like a lot of like common mistakes that people make, which is like slamming items which are really narrow. That's like item number 1, right? Like if you just choose to play like items that you think are on the comp that you want to play, you're like you're closing yourself off from being able to pivot, which actually does force you to play inflexibly, versus playing items that are good for the stage, which I think is like a really interesting thing that he talks about. He also talks about challenging people on what actually is a good chosen, because there's a lot of great streamers out there that I like to watch. Like I watch a ton of Soju and Milk and Salvi, and I like to check out a bunch of other streamers too, like Beck and all them. And they all have their own strong opinions, right? Like, oh, I'm never gonna pick up this chosen. Like this is just bad.
Right.
The thing is, Sox actually is saying that there's a lot of uses for all these kinds of chosens at different stages of the game, and that is worth exploring. And so it's a little bit hard to break this entire thing down, but like the one thing that I would definitely say is be open-minded. Like think about like what actually the champion does right now versus is it a chosen that you can ride to the very end of stage 5 and 6 to the end of the game. And I think that's like one mistake that a lot of players unfortunately get caught in. They think that buying a chosen, it's not a commitment for life. It's just a temporary allegiance, if you will. Don't have to feel like you're committed to it.
It's not a wife; it's a girlfriend.
There you go.
Some people get married straight out of high school. No,
that's true.
Works for some people. Doesn't work for a lot.
That's like your chosen Yasuo. That's like your high school sweetheart. You 3-star it at an early age, and you're with it for 60 years. And it's a beautiful thing. But
I would urge people to go around and date a bunch of chosens before like you need to know what's out there, right? Like maybe the chosen Yasuo for you, there's a chosen Jinx. But
sometimes you want to go through life and let your board develop a bit, as it were, and then you find that chosen Riven later on, and even if your parents are telling you you're way too old, you should have tied the knot years ago. Then you find that chosen Kayn, and you're like, see, mom and dad, I told you, I was just waiting for the perfect person.
But sometimes, like you wait for the chosen Kayn and they never come, and you die sad and lonely.
That's true too.
On your board.
Yeah.
You gotta commit sometime.
Sometimes you just top 8 in life too. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. We got deep there for a second, didn't we?
I didn't know I was getting TFT and love advice from Loco tonight. But,
for me, I'm chosen open right now. You guys are chosen committed. You guys have your comps.
What star level do you?
Yeah, Loco sold his chosen. He's staying open for a while now.
I'm looking for a good chosen.
What star level do you think you're up to?
He saved up a lot of gold. Ladies, he saved up all his gold. He's ready to roll.
I'm waiting for the perfect 5-cost chosen right now.
You don't want to wait too long and just be donkey rolling late game, you know? That's no
Yeah.
good.
Don't worry,
Alright.
I'm gonna commit soon. I'm getting
I
to
feel
that
like
level where I do need to commit.
I feel like
That's
I've
right.
grown as a person. Yep.
Oh,
I should be
jeez.
careful what I say. My
Everyone else found their chosen Loco. Where's yours?
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm level 28 with no chosen. It's pretty late.
That's like up to like I don't like 3 cost, 4 costs. You're getting there. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Look for settle down with a nice Cassiopeia maybe.
Yeah, for
I'll
sure.
be on the lookout.
Exactly. On that note, let's move on to esports, where things are very competitive. But not as much lately. There haven't been a ton of tournaments. We had the Mortdog 4v4 Madness. That was awesome. Loco, you were in that. We talked a little bit about your experience in that earlier. But right now, you know, we've got Fight Night, which is tomorrow night actually here on GiantSlayerTV. But there's not a ton else going on at the moment. We're kind of just sort of waiting to hear what the esports plans are from Riot for set 4.
I think that's terrible. I actually think Riot and TFT team really dropped the ball. For when we think back to like early League of Legends, like think back to like season 1, like they talked about like a ranked ladder, they talked about like world championships, like they talked about all this and they had like plans for esports and they also announced it to the players. I remember having this conversation with Chaucer, who dropped out of um his college to go professionally, and he talked about, hey, this is how much Riot is spending in the pool for this year. If I can see even 0.5% of that, then it's going to be worth it. And it's something I can commit to. And I'm good at League of Legends. And this is a path that I want to follow. For TFT, for the esports, for set 4, publicly available, there is zero information. There is literally zero information. Maybe there's some that I'm missing out on. But TFT, there is a huge player base and there is a competitive player base that's hungry, that wants to compete, that wants to prove themselves. And yeah, I think like this kind of communication from Riot is kind of disappointing, especially compared to what they've done for Legends of Runeterra comparatively to Valorant. Like TFT is that it's that unloved child, it's that middle child that Riot does not want to care for. And I know where it comes from. I know the team is a lot smaller, and I know Legends of Runeterra, Valorant, these games have been years into development, and like they have like a huge team behind it, and they plan things out ahead. And TFT was like, ooh, auto chess, it's cool. We're gonna go do auto chess, and they developed it like under a year, and then they released it. I know it was done extremely quickly, but yeah, it's really disappointing that TFT is enjoying a huge player base and there's so little competitive support from the developer.
Yeah, I totally agree. Oh, by the way, thanks for the raid, Delicious Milk. How's it going? Thanks for
Yeah.
joining us. We're talking esports. What a coincidence! But yeah, it does seem like it's been a while
Oh
since
no.
we've heard announcements
No,
about.
posted us
no,
started talking
we're-
about competitive.
That's right.
We're whining.
Oh,
That's
no.
the perfect thing for
Like
milk.
it's like we summoned him like Beetlejuice or something like that.
Oh god, yeah. Yeah, I fully agree with Loco here. I think like the lack of an announcement for set 4 competitive is starting to become like concerning on multiple fronts. One, they did promise that there was going to be a set 4 championship sometime in 2021. The issue is that no one knows how to plan their life for it. And if you want people to take it competitively or very seriously from a competitive perspective, you can't just announce it a month out and say the next 4 weeks of ladder are going to matter, or the next 4 weeks of like a rank snapshot are going to be the way we seed that. Because you know the most important thing about games like TFT is the aspiration to go pro. The fact that randomness and variance is in the game is important so that players like Locodoco think he actually has a shot against players like Delicious Milk in Fight Night. And you know, Loco can high roll 1 week and actually get through to the next week.
We placed higher than Milk's team in the 4v4 tourney.
You actually need to convince these suckers that they actually have a chance. And you know, all jokes aside, like the reality is, you know, you actually have to create this dynamic where people want to aspire to be. And right now, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like something that Riot thinks is cool, that they promise to do for the players, and they try to organize. And whether or not they have the resources to do it doesn't seem to be a big concern, right? Because they do seem to be regionalizing their competition and empowering the local community to do it. But that kind of creates like amateur mistakes like we did in the previous set championship. And so right now, I think like what really needs to happen is, first of all, they need to kind of talk to us what their game plan is, or if they're even thinking about it, right? Maybe they should just be honest and say, right now, we're not sure what competitive looks like for set 4 because the pandemic sucks and we don't know what's going to happen. Anything
Dude,
to let us
no.
know what they're thinking about, because it just looks so bad when you juxtapose it with how they're doing the Legends of Runeterra championship that they just announced, with Valorant weekly events that they're announced, with like the fact that League of Legends, of course, is the biggest esport in the world still. And it's like, what happened to TFT, which is like one of the biggest games on the planet and in terms of player base size for this game, especially for the genre. And yet it doesn't really get that love and attention that Loco was talking about.
You know what's weird? This would be acceptable in set 2. This would be somewhat acceptable in set 3. It's set 4, guys. Like, we've seen TFT being a proven success, and the fact that competitive is still like this is the problem. Like, I could totally understand it if, right, maybe TFT doesn't take off. Maybe TFT isn't going to get that player base. Maybe the esport orgs don't care about TFT. Maybe TFT is too random. I think the too random part is kind of bullshit. Hearthstone had an esport. Like, poker is completely random. Like, poker is like a very much a sport, and people make full-time living off of it. What's going on with TFT? It's set 4. Like, the game is a proven success. Like, right, you have shown that you can build an esport. Like, teams are interested in it. Like Soju, C9, like TSM has like 50 players. Like TSM has like Kiting, Kyun, Soulless, like TL with Polt, TL with Saint. Like, the teams care, the players care. It feels like the one last part that's missing is the developers. And there's also like how esports is being run nowadays. Like, developers are the king. They hold all the power, right? Like, I mean,
unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately, it would be really
unfortunately,
good. Sure. It would be really good for Riot to make TFT into an esport, and the fact that it's not is really, really disappointing.
Well, so one thing you said there is for Riot to make TFT into an esport. I think the community's already made TFT into an esport. Like that's been done. Like, TFT is an esport because the fans decided it was an esport. What I think Riot is doing not right now is that we had this big long video about how great it was that they created the World Championship and they were going to support TFT esports now. And oh, thank you, Papa Riot. But but then we've got this big delay after the end of set 3, right? Where we're waiting to hear something and we have not heard anything yet. And you can't have a 10-minute long video about that and then have 2 months of radio silence, right? When, to a certain extent, I get it from their perspective too, where I'm sure that they also want to make sure that they don't repeat some of the problems that we had in set 3 with some of the regional qualifiers and things like that. They are nervous that it is being done right, and I get that, but say something, at least give us some sort of information, right? And I think that the fact that we're kind of lacking that right now, it wasn't bothering me until like a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, all right, it's been long enough. Let's kind of get the ball rolling for set 4, because it's like Frodan said, right? You can't wait too long because people are trying to plan their time around this. They're trying to decide how much they want to commit to it. You need to give people some time to actually, be pro players if you say that you're going to, right? So, we just need to hear something, and that said, I think there will be tons of great high-end community tournaments for TFT and set 4. Right now, it feels like a lot of orgs are waiting to do anything because they're waiting to see what Riot's going to do, which is kind of unfortunate because, again, like TFT Esports was created by the fans and was created by the community, and we ultimately can just create our own stuff, and that will be great, and it has been great to the extent. But now Riot have put themselves in there again, right? And they've said they're going to do all this stuff, now. So we're kind of hamstrung a little bit, right? We kind of have to wait to hear what that stuff is. So
what said regarding the team part is also very important. Like, there's player commitment, like players being aspirational and committing their time. But also when you make announcements, like there's going to be like a $5 million TFT tournament at the end of the year, and this is how you qualify for it. It gets the teams excited too, and then the teams also pick up players, and then it helps the players along. Like, the whole ecosystem around TFT esports for set 4 is at a still stand because Riot has not announced anything, no plans, no nothing.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, there isn't a whole lot more we can really say about that, other than, Rito, please, if you're gonna make everybody wait to hear your information, don't make us wait too long, because it's just kind of harming what's been created already.
Small indie
and
company, sorry.
What's that?
Small indie company, sorry. And that was like it was like the right excuse, like what, like 5 years ago? Like that just cannot stand anymore.
I mean, at least we've got Mort out there making some
It's
tournaments.
particularly interesting because, like, right now, like, our industry, like, in general, is filled with games being pushed by developers, right? Like, a game launches, and, like, before the, like, beta even finishes, people are like, "I'm signed by, T1 to, like, compete
Yeah.
on this game that's completely
Sometimes
unproven."
MVPs of huge leagues leave their teams and go to a game with no actual esports scene yet. It happens.
Riot is the most
Former MVP
developer
got redacted from history, though.
in terms of esports. Like Blizzard completely dropped the ball. Like when I think developer and esport, I think Riot. I don't think Blizzard anymore.
Yeah. Well,
Fair enough.
like regardless of like, Riot versus Blizzard or whatever, because, obviously we could talk about that for a long time. The idea is that this is like one of the few scenes in the entire industry that like the community is like begging the developer to create something for, right? As opposed to the developer going to the fans and say, "You probably want this," and the fans were like, we're not sure. Like we kind of like this game, and we'll see how the competitors.
I'm not gonna say which games. There's games that pay teams to be like, make a team in our game. We will pay you. We will fund the salary. We will give you average like a certain amount per player, and we want you to compete in our league, and we will pay the player salaries. Like we want
a lot of people don't know that.
TSMs, we want the Team Liquid, we want the Cloud9. Like all you have to do is operate the team. We will take care of the salary costs. And like TFT is in like a complete reverse situation. Like people want this game to be competitive. There's so many people willing to jump in.
And it comes down to this, what I mentioned earlier, where in set 3 and at the end of set 2, we had a lot of really great high-end community tournaments going from a bunch of different organizations. And now we're in the situation where, again, Riot has stated there's going to be big TFT stuff coming that we're making. And so as a tournament organizer, it's really hard to want to plan or announce plans of anything you're going to do, because you never know when the developer's just going to come in and be like, well, actually, we're doing our thing. And now that all that planning and, organizing you did just doesn't count for anything anymore. No org wants to be in that situation again. So everything's kind of on a standstill. So, but we can't let that keep going. We need to have something out there to kind of free the orgs to do stuff, or give the orgs something to work with, right? I mean, we had the Ignition series for Valorant, which I think was really good. First Strike has me kind of nervous, but that's a whole different kind of story. Similar but different. And for TFT, we just need to know what's going on. We all want tournaments. A lot of people out there want to make tournaments. They just want to make sure that they aren't going to make something that's going to be canceled or overshadowed, when Riot decides to step in. So yeah, we love TFT. We want to see this stuff. Yeah, that's about it. All right. Well, guys, there's thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. Let's do a tier list really quick, because we always talk about doing tier lists and things like that. We're gonna make it easy on you this time, Loco. We're not gonna have you try to rate any of the pro players and anything, because we know you're kind of new to the pro scene in TFT. We don't want you to make any enemies.
We just literally
getting started out. Yeah,
don't worry. I will make my enemies. But
although Soju's in chat right now, he wants that NA top 10. But I understand if you're uncomfortable. That's okay.
I'm very curious how other people rank people. Like maybe I'll like if I made a list, like probably Fox is up there. Probably
all right.
The only person that I can like clearly put up there is like Fox, and then I just don't watch any streamers that often, and like people change so much, like not set by set, like patch by patch. So how do you even rank people?
Right. Well, that's for you to decide.
Well, I'll do it by stream count. I'll have Soja at number 1.
All right. Well, let's talk about your top 5 comps at least. What's number 1?
He wants you to do the NA tier list, Loco. He wants to hear.
We have top 5 comps on the screen, but we can just pretend comps. Okay. All right. Well, Loco.
Okay, I'm the
flexible gamer, Loco. This is an opportunity for you to be flexible right now.
I knew this was going to happen. This was going to happen, by the way.
I'll do top 10 most influential TFT people. Okay.
Oh, all right. Our producers told us we can pivot, so this is possible. We have the technology.
Okay.
Influential people.
Top 10 most influential people in TFT.
Okay.
Number 1 probably has to be Mortdog. Mortdog is very much a publicly facing member from Riot. Has his own stream, has his own content, works on the game, besides a lot of things. I think Mortdog
safe pick. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Number 2. So I'm like, there's 3 people in my head that I know should be up here, but I also am not sure how I should rank them. It's Bunny Fufu, it's Skara, it's Disguised Toast. These 3 in my head and in the English-speaking community are the biggest content creators. I know Soju's number 1 on like Twitch. Maybe he's not even number 1 when Skara and Toast streams. I haven't really checked their numbers, but YouTube is like majority of the viewership. Like Twitch is a booger compared to YouTube. And I know Bunny, Skara, and Toast are the 3 biggest YouTube creators. So
rank them.
Yeah. I don't know, like how influential is being the biggest creator? How influential is it? Like when I think League, like Faker's more influential than like Tyler 1. So
wow. Hot take.
Okay, well, you gotta rank them, right? You gotta put them out.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you started this, so it's on you now, Loco. We were gonna let you talk comps, but you wanted to rank actual people, so you know. It's on you now.
I'll put Skara at number 2. I think Skara still plays a lot of TFT. Skara has like a huge voice and a huge channel, and Toast is more Among Us than he is TFT nowadays.
Fair.
True.
All right.
So he's the imposter on the TFT influencer list, huh?
One imposter among us.
Sure.
Help me. Who would you guys have up here?
This isn't our list.
Oh.
This is our list.
You guys are still here. I can still call a friend, and I'm calling you guys for help.
So you said Disguised Toast at number 3 and Bunny Fufu at 4.
I don't know where I would place Bunny or Toast. Toast doesn't do TFT content as much. He is very much more Among Us than he is TFT. Like I know a lot of people.
I mean, he was like super important for the game for a long time, right? Like in the very beginning of it, which you can argue is really important.
Should we put
what about Becca?
Becca? Oh
yeah, great player, very popular streamer, influential.
I would definitely have her in my top 10, but also she's a friend, so I don't want to gas her up. Kind of. I think Becca and Saint very important, very good streamers, like huge player or huge fan bases. I don't know.
So where in the top 10 would you put her then?
Where would I put Becca?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't need to do an order. You can put her anywhere in the top 10.
I'll start her off at like 7, and then we'll see when we fill out the list, like how I feel about it then, and then we can move her around. So like, I guess like I'll put everyone that I know for a fact should be on the list. I think Soju should definitely be on the list.
All right.
DiGiorno Toast.
It's not delivery. It's DiGiorno.
It was close enough. An attempt was made.
I would have Soju. I would have Becca on the list. Who else would I have on the list? Who would you guys have on the list for sure?
Okay. I've been really impressed. I know that it sounds like since he's just here in chat, or he was here in chat, Soju's been really killing it lately on the streams, and he's been really trying to be more positive. Rage quits in tournaments aside, because I did happen to tune into it. I was like, oh, I'll watch him play the UC Rookie tournament. He's just like, guys, I can't do this. Guys, I can't. I try to be so positive, and he just like quit the stream. But all that aside, I think Soju's been doing such a good job being like one of the lead content creators for TFT lately, putting out great tier lists, competing a lot, being fun, and like helping be like community leader. Just has to avoid getting banned for being an idiot in chat sometimes. He'd be like ambassador.
The thing is, like, Soju's a huge streamer, and that is a lot of eyes on Soju. But like I said earlier, like YouTube is really where the majority of the viewership is at. Soju made really great guys. Like whenever I have new friends that want to play set 4, the first thing before I coach them is go watch all Soju's videos. And honestly, he didn't get that much views. I thought he should get way more views on his videos, and he didn't get that much. So I'll still have Soju up here. Who else?
So Soju at 5?
Sure. Yeah, we'll just list people, and then we can reorder them. Sure. We can put Soju 5. We can put Becca 6. I think Milk should be on there. Milk can be a 7, and then we'll start ordering people. And then once we get like kind of a list, like I'll definitely be able to like move people around.
It's gonna be a long night, guys. We're gonna be here.
So just let me know. Is there anyone like I'm missing to you guys, like someone that like stands out greatly?
I'm trying to think of who I watched. I feel like I watched a lot of Ine's videos early on when I was learning TFT. Didn't he put out a lot of really good guides?
Ine? How can he?
so.
He was like 7 years old when TFT was released.
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. I don't know.
She's
Because
actually a really
you
good one.
mentioned YouTube early, like YouTube TFT influencers.
I think Keen is actually a really good one. Someone in chat mentioned Keen.
Okay.
Keen. Who else?
He's good. For a while, like people, yeah, it's kind of hard to say because if you say like current versus like people historically in the past, because like
Yeah.
in the past, it was people like Dog and Hafu and Polt and like a lot of other people that help kind of bring a lot of awareness. But right now, it's kind of like the mantle has kind of is being passed to a bunch of North American memers like Kiyun and Kurum. You have
North
Sock
American memers.
as like one of the
Right.
people. It's really interesting to see like all these different
Salby.
people.
Salby's probably the best European player, right? Like he's like rank 1 every set. He ends, so he should definitely be up there.
Salvi, okay.
Salvi, okay, yeah. What about people that have been influential behind the scenes in the tournament scene, like Frodan and I? Would you put us on? Yeah, Risa. Yep, she should be on there.
It's so small. I don't think you guys have any influence.
What? Oh, come on.
You're only saying that because you did not qualify for the next fight night.
Ouch.
Because of that.
I'm hurt.
I think you guys do a great job, and I appreciate the work you guys do. I'm being realistic. Like,
hey, I'm just saying. One of us has one of their casting calls as a voice line League of Legends. That's all. You know, I don't want to flex here, but I'm just saying.
Wow.
I don't know. But okay, let's get the last 3 and let's get this thing done with. Give me 3 more.
Give me 3 more. Okay, I'll say Salby, Keen. Who else? Salby is okay. Who else? Bro, I'll let you pick one. You can pick the 10th.
It's on you, Frodan.
Oh, me? Yeah, I pick Risa. I think the GiantSlayer TV,
I like
maybe just GiantSlayer TV in general. Like, you know, I know we're on their podcast, but honestly, like it's been said countless times by everybody who still, you know, competes and streams a lot of TFT. Without them, the scene in the West would just kind of be dead for any kind of competition. There'd be like, you know, random invitationals and a few different showcases here and there, but like they really do a good job keeping everything together. And I think that's a great way to wrap up this list. So shout out to GiantSlayer people. You guys.
Hands down. All right. I think it's a great list. Well done, Loco. You told us earlier today you didn't want to list people. You were too uncomfortable, but we peer pressured you into it. So that's a win for us, Frodan. Great job on our side. Thank you, Twitch chat, for making it happen. We're gonna wrap up the show. Locodoco, any final thoughts here?
I had a lot of fun. I haven't done a talk show in a long while, and you guys should be honored. A lot of people want me on talk show.
I feel so honored. Yeah.
Just you guys.
That's it? That's your only shout out?
Oh,
we'll take it, but
I mean, follow my Twitch, follow my YouTube, follow my Twitter. I'm a good content creator, and I have all my handles on across all platforms. So it's twitch.tv/Locodoco, Twitter/Locodoco, Instagram/Locodoco, YouTube/Locodoco. Follow me. I make good content.
Sounds great. Find him on TikTok as well, I'm sure. Frodan, any final thoughts for you?
Nothing really. Just like, you know, definitely keep checking out GiantSlayer's content. Like they do Fight Night every Thursday. And they do a bunch of other stuff. So if you're interested in any kind of adjacent games, like they do Legends of Runeterra stuff, if you are one of the people who play that, they're also doing some Valorant things as well. So definitely check out the GiantSlayer people because, you know, they really do help keep the scene alive. And also, if you're not following the channel, at least just like do that, right? Like hit the follow button, boost those numbers so that way they can go to sponsors and say like, look how many people care about our product. That kind of stuff goes a really long way. So if you're not following this channel or like, you know, following a bunch of other people's channel, please do that.
Seriously. Everything Frodan said, I will quote retweet that because it's all true. Thanks to all you guys for watching Teamfight Talk Show. Remember, there is Fight Night tomorrow. Really great place to watch some great players, some up and coming players like Locodoco. Well, not this week, but maybe in future weeks. And that's about it. Thanks for watching Teamfight Talk Show. Thanks to Locodoco for coming on the show, for Frodan being the amazing co-host as always. And we will see you guys next time.